Welcome to Cooking with Keith. I'm Chef Keith of Valeria Restaurant in Boerne, Texas. Today we're going to be doing a lobster bisque. Lobster bisque was from the Brittany part of France back with the 1600s, where they used crayfish. In the 1950s it immigrated to the United States in the form of lobster bisque, and that's what we're going to be doing today with Maine lobster. 1.5 pound lobster right here. We're going to get started right away. I'll show you how to break it down after we cook it. Right in the pot, submerged. We actually have some hard shells from some previous lobsters, and we're already building the stock, and so this will just enrich the stock even more. And we'll let that go for about 6.5 minutes. And today's ingredients are going to be some high smoke point oil. In this case I'm using rice bran oil, and that's going to be used to flambe the soft parts of the lobster bodies. The legs, the inner part of the head, the tamale, and the roe inside the lobster. We're going to be flambeing that with cognac, which we have here measured out. And then we're going to be adding tomato paste, aromatics or white peppercorns, star anise. We'll be using some hot Japanese chilies called hawk's claw chilies, but nice and spicy. We'll be using some organic oranges, peels and all, with the juice and the peels. Some fresh tarragon, stems and all, and some leeks. And we'll be using some shallots, garlic, and heavy cream. And now we're going to prepare our shallots and our garlic. We don't need too fine a dice on these shallots because it's going to be put all in with everything and it's going to be strained later on. We'll slice our garlic. We'll put these all together, get them ready for the pot. So now we'll check the lobster. It should be ready now. We'll simply just pull it out and let it rest and cool. And lastly, we have all the shells of the other lobsters I've already cooked, and it's just adding its flavor and depth to the stock. So now we're going to bring a pot so we can strain our lobster stock. I've got a chinois here. I'm going to turn off the fire so we don't burn ourselves. Over the chinois and carefully pour. And there we have it. We'll get all that goodness in there. And now we have a great lobster stock to add flavor to the bisque. Now we need 4 liters. I would say to start with 5 liters to make sure you end up with 4 liters of stock. There'll be some evaporation, of course, and you'll need enough water to cover all the lobster's shells. And there we have 4 liters, and we know exactly what we need later in the recipe. And now before we start cooking, I'll show you, I left 1 lobster that we just cooked, and I'll show you how to break it down for this dish. We'll take the claws off, very easy, just pull down. We're going to twist the tail off, and then we're going to take the softer part of the lobster, not the hard shell, but the softer part, and just take it down. And we'll scrape any of the green tamale off, squeeze it down in there. We'll reserve the meat for later. And here we have all the softer parts that I've taken off the other lobsters. The recipe I have is for 4 lobsters, which is probably more common for a household to use. But I have 8 I'm doing 8 today because we're actually doing this for service at the restaurant. There we go. So now we have all the soft parts. And you want to get the most contact you can with the pan to release a lot of the flavor and give a nice char. So we're going to break these down a little bit. Since it's not hard shells left, it's pretty easy to manipulate these with your hands and just tear them open. You can go wash your hands after you do this. This helps get a little more exposure to the surface of the pan before we flambe it with cognac. And there we have it. I'll wash my hands. And now we'll turn the pan on, get it nice and hot. Got a nice round rondo pan here. Get it on high heat. We'll let it get hot first before we add the oil and the lobster. You always want to make sure you start with a really hot pan. We'll put our rice bran oil. And you can use any high smoke point oil. I wouldn't use olive oil on this part. We're using about 40 grams of oil. Let it go around and coat all the surfaces. And now we'll start adding our lobster pieces. I could dump it all in at once, but I'm trying to gently place them in. I'm putting them in individually so I can spread them out to get the maximum sear so they don't go in one big clump. We'll stir them around now after they've gotten a little sear. We have these nice juices. We'll wait just a little bit more to get more sear. And before we add these juices, we'll flambe with cognac. So a little trick at our restaurant, since this is a high-walled pan, because we're going to get our blowtorch going a little bit in advance. So we'll put it in, and there we go. And now we'll want to add actually our tomato paste so we can get a little toasted. Get a little caramelization going on. We'll stir that around a little, get it on the high heat. Now we can add our chilies, our aromatics, star anise. We can add the remainder of those juices. And now we're going to add some olive oil before we put in our shallots and garlic. We'll stir those around in the olive oil on this side. Add our peppercorns, leeks, maybe a little bit more olive oil. I'm going to turn the heat down a touch now. Now I'm going to add our oranges, juice and all, skins, everything. The oils in the orange skin really add a nice component flavor to the dish. And now we'll put in our tarragon. We can chop it. And now we'll put in our bay leaves. We have a plant outside, so they're fresh and green. And now we'll put in our stock. Give it a good stir. And now the cream. This is heavy cream. I think it's really best to use heavy cream. And now it's simply as simple as letting it simmer for about 30 minutes. See over here the deep, rich color. We have the tomato paste that's adding to the color, as well as the stock cooking. It's really a nice, beautiful color here. We've got those oranges, the star anise, and the tarragon giving it a nice anisey flavor and citrus flavor from the orange. And we have the garlic in there. Everything that's going to be coming together really nicely here. So while this is finishing to simmer, we will show you how to break down the lobster pieces to get some of the meat to garnish the soup with. Actually, we'll start with this. And one of my favorite tools I've ever found for the kitchen is not, I didn't find it at a kitchen store or a restaurant supply, it's actually Home Depot. It's a scissors that are called Wiss, W-I-S-S. And these are phenomenal. They go right through chicken bones, they go right through lobster shells. It's an amazing tool. So we're just going to simply start on the top side and go as close to the surface as possible. And we'll turn it around, find the bottom shell, and just go along and open up. Very easy. Super easy to process instead of whacking a knife on having chips of lobster shell go flying all over the place. So we can kind of wiggle this loose, pull the claw meat out. In many claws there's a little piece of cartilage right in the middle, so you can kind of wedge that out. And then again, a good use for these scissors are right down on the part of the claw here. Simply open it up and you have more meat right here. You can save these pieces of shell and you can put them in a bag and put them in the freezer. For the next time you do a lobster stock, you can add to it extra shells. It just gives it more flavor. And on these you can actually go do the same thing. Get it to that point and just pop them open. The nice claw meat coming right outside, super easy. This one doesn't have a cartilage in the middle. We're lucky. We have one more claw to cut through. Again, see the ease of using these scissors. Very evident, it's very easy. And there we have a good amount of meat for a lobster bisque. That's enough for at least two. So now that we've cleaned up, we're going to strain our lobster bisque. It's been going for a good 30 minutes. We're going to check it and see. It's thickening up a little, but we'll take care of that by thickening it up after we strain it. So we have a strainer here. Because of all the large pieces of shell and ingredients, I'm not tilting the pan and just pouring it in, so I'm taking my time to do it safely and having a little patience to make sure we get this right and not have a big spill. And we'll squeeze down when we see the oranges, we'll squeeze down a little to extract more of the juices and the oils into the liquid. I can smell the aromas are really enticing with the star anise and the orange peels and the juice and the garlic and onions and the lobster. It's a great combination. So now that we're at the end and most of the solids are out, we'll go ahead and pick up the pan and strain it. And there we go. Give our last bits we'll press down on. There's the chilies. We'll be hitting that a little bit to get a little spice in there. And now we have our strained bisque. And we'll get this out of the way. And now we'll bring the bisque over here. The very important step now is to check for seasoning. So we'll just get a little tasting spoon here. It's going to need just a touch of salt, very little. And I'm going to put a little bit of fresh ground black pepper just to give it a little more kick. And so as you can see, the bisque is just a little too runny. So we're going to fix that. We're using kudzu starch. It's also known as kuzu root. It's native to Japan and China. And actually, I didn't know this before, but it's got a lot of great medicinal uses, from controlling blood pressure, lowering glucose levels, relieving arthritis. So it's a very interesting plant, and it's, I think, a little bit healthier than cornstarch, and it doesn't have the gummy consistency of cornstarch, which is very important to avoid. And so we have some in our ramekin here. We're going to add just a little water, make a little slurry, and we'll put it in there and put it back on the heat on low for about 3 or 4 minutes, and it should thicken up nicely. So we've added our water, and we're going to stir it around, make this slurry. We'll put this back on low heat, and we'll simply just stir it in, and it should be nice. We don't want it super thick, but just want to thicken up a little bit more from this consistency to being a little bit more of a traditional bisque thickness. We'll actually move this over here, and I can show you how we can saute our lobster meat. So we'll take our tail, clean it up a little, and we'll cut it down the middle lengthwise. Turn it over, and I like to go in between the segmentations here. There we have it. We'll make 2 servings. And now we'll get a little clarified butter. And we'll get a pan over here and heat up the pan. Check out our bisque. I can already feel it getting a little thicker already. It's doing its work, doing its job, the kuzu root. So now we'll get our clarified butter. You don't need a lot, just coat the pan. So we're using clarified butter because the milk solids will burn in the pan when you get on high heat, and we want a high heat flash point, but we don't want the milk solids in there. So we clarify butter weekly here to make sure that we have clarified butter for steaks, for searing scallops, for searing lobster meat, for a bisque. And here we go, we'll put it in. Just want to give it a little, let it sit for a second. We want to be careful not to overcook the lobster, so I'm going to turn the fire off and let it just sit on the side without the pilot light even. We want it to be tender and not tough or rubbery, so that's sufficient right there. We'll check again on this. This is looking great. And we'll taste it again. Always super important to taste several times before we serve anything. Make sure the guest is getting the right amount of seasoning. That's just about right. I think just a touch more salt. And now we'll get ready to bowl up our lobster bisque. So to present our bisque, we'll just simply use a nice elegant bowl here. Carefully ladle right in the center. And so we have it right here. We'll get a little spoon and spoon some of our lobster meat in. As it fills in the center, it'll create a little bit of a base. You can put this piece right there. It'll be a little more visible. Clean up a little bit right there. And then I think it's nice to garnish with just a few tarragon leaves. And we just tear in little pieces. And now the moment we've been waiting for, the tasting part that I've been waiting for. So here we are. Very intense aromas, flavors, really well balanced. I can tell the star anise is in there. A touch of chili pepper comes through, so it's just a tang of spiciness, which is really lovely. The garlic is just lovely, and I can tell the orange is in there as well. The citrusy, is very pronounced as well. So everything is really blended together well, though, and I think it's a great combination. To go with this, I'm drinking a Donica Chardonnay from Santa Rita Hills in California. It's a nice organic winery, all organic. This is 100% Chardonnay, and we've been carrying this at the restaurant for over a year. It's a lovely Chardonnay, and it really pairs well with the richness of the dish. Very good combination, very good pairing. Please go out and try this. You can do this at home. Just follow our steps, it'll be easy. Buon appetito. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. And if you want to see a particular dish that you'd like us to do, please leave a suggestion in the comments.